back to the class, everyone. 2024 is officially in full swing, and while we haven't really gotten any news from the developers as far as what new characters or what our new theme is going to be coming into this year, I do want to put some feelers out there for what I think will be some really great additions to the game in this coming year. So obviously I have no insider information at all as far as what is going on. So these are not meant as predictions or data leaks or anything like that. This is purely just what I think would be really great to add to the game, not only from a mechanical perspective, there is some of that, but also just from an enjoyment perspective of different characters that I think would be great for us to have to be able to play with in GAC or whatever other game mode. So first up, I want to talk about Separatist Flexibility. Right now we have this really tight-knit way of using several Separatist squads between Geonosians, the droids with Grievous, as well as kind of what appears to be a leftover squad with Admiral Trench, but is actually quite good. And I guess my main bone to pick with this, why I would like to get an extra character or two to be able to bolster this, is because the second that you want to pull Wat Tambor into another squad or Jango into a Mandalorian squad, you end up not being able to make all the teams you want to make. And quite frankly, outside of TW, where they don't really have any of their Omicrons, they are just a little bit lackluster. And a great addition in 2024 to be able to fix and upgrade the teams as a whole, I think, would be adding General Kalani. Now, there are a number of ways that they could do this. He is a droid, so it would make more sense if he would maybe go to the General Grievous team and add in some synergy that way, or maybe they could even give him specific tech and extortion mechanics so that he could help filter with Trench, or maybe swap between the two of them in some way. Again, so you're not just pigeonholed into having to use every single Separatist in that exact squad. You have a little more flexibility to use Wat, who is such a great plug-and-play character, in several other squads as well. I don't really know what he would constitute as. He actually does kind of give me small legendary vibes, not exactly a galactic legend, maybe somewhere around a conquest level character that would be needed to really take one of those teams up to another level. Although two conquest characters in the Admiral Trench team seems a little bit weird, but I guess you could go with Grievous in that way. Next up is going to be Afra. Now this one is definitely going to be a mechanical wish list type item. This isn't really that I think this character is amazing and we need to have them in game, but one of the things that the Afra team really lacks is they do not have a cleanse. In fact, they barely have a dispel through IPD. It's one turn every 3 or 4 turns before you can keep using it. So they really do need some help. In addition to that, they really could use a tank. The only tank that can really be used on their team right now are scoundrel tanks like Chrysanthemum, who really don't function all that well. And one of the characters out there that I think would be able to fit this role super well would be BB9. If we even look to him as a counterpart to BB8, BB8 has conditions in which when he rolls, he will end up taunting. Granted, it has to be with all droids, but they could probably make a certain exception when he's with Afra, or when he's with the majority of the team as droids or something like that, so that he could taunt, and maybe every single time he rolls, he also cleanses. That way that Afra has a little bit more wiggle room out of what she's trying to do. Because quite frankly, the team, it's supposed to kind of be at the same level of Starkiller and Malgus, utilizing several GAC Omicrons. It just doesn't quite feel like it's there. Obviously, she's amazing right now with our current Datacron, slicing through Jabba without any issues at all. But when that's gone, she becomes very niche as to what she can beat. And again, not a worthless character. You can still make a lot of things happen. But I feel like she could need some help without having to pull away necessarily from other teams like the General Grievous or Darth Vader comp out there. And a tank that cleanse like BB9 I think would be a nice addition on top of that. Now the next one, and this is where this really starts to appear like a wish list. I don't think this is going to happen, and if it is going to happen, it's definitely not happening this next year. We are typically getting about 1 galactic legend per year, and it looks like we're probably going to get some version of Mando or Thrawn or Ahsoka, given where the current direction of the films and series are going. But I still think that it would be amazing if at some point we could get Darth Crate. One of the more challenging things I think for CG is bringing in these really powerful Sith Lords without making every single one of them galactic legends. We just got Bane, we're still kind of missing Vitiate, Darth Crate obviously isn't in the game either, and one of the places I think he could fit in really well is as a Tusken leader. I realize there's a small lore issue where he's mostly a Jedi when he works with Tuskens, but at the end of the day, he still worked with them a lot, even in his turn to the dark side before he became the ultimate Darth Crate that we end up seeing towards the end of his life. And I think there's a pretty strong connection there, and this would allow them to bring in, again, another really powerful Sith Lord as the Galactic Legend without necessarily messing with all the current Sith synergy that already exists with Traya or Malgus or C or even the upcoming Bane. And quite frankly, he's just a really cool character. And he spans against so many different timelines that they could pull requirements really from everywhere. Obviously, they would be able to take in Talon, somewhere in the Obi-Wan series, or as well as with Luke. They could even take in the Tuskens because he obviously worked, especially with the generic named ones. All that would be able to work really well, and I think they could find some pretty good common ground as far as those requirements go. Next up is going to be Jesse and or Omicron. I really would like to see Jesse from the 501st in game. Currently, General Skywalker doesn't really need a ton of help to still be an active squad, even at the very end stages of GAC. That being said, we've seen a lot of the stronger squads out there continue to get help. I'm specifically talking about Traya, who got her, not only her Omicron, but has been assisted by other Omicrons, either by Talon or Savage. And Traya was never really on the chopping block for getting totally cut off, but she was able to get these and become an even better squad. The other squad that I quite think of a lot when I think of good squads getting even better was Darth Revan. Darth Revan wasn't entirely gone off the map, and then they added Malgus and made him even better. I think it would be really cool for us to get another 501st clone, aka Jesse, that would be able to slot somewhere in here. I'm not exactly sure who you would remove. I think that maybe Arc has a little bit of more versatility outside of her, maybe an Echo with his AoE stun, adding in Jesse in there, or maybe they even do something where, I don't like this idea, but they pull General Skywalker out and you just have the 5 clones. That way Fives can sacrifice himself for 4 other clones. Although they might put in a lore caveat that he can't sacrifice him for Jesse, because that's kind of how that goes down. But either way, I would like to see this team get just a little bit stronger, and I'm always a fan of getting more of the clones from the 501st in game. Maybe they can give them special synergy with Ahsoka or against Ahsoka or something like that. Next up is going to be not a character at all. We've been doing pretty strictly characters, but much in the same vein of the fact that we always get about 1 Galactic Legend per year, we've also been pretty consistently getting about 1 raid per year, and that is going to continue per CG telling us. And the one that I think would be really nice to add in would be the Xyl Beast. And the reason why, I guess there's 2 reasons. Number 1, I'm a Clone Wars fan, so that's kind of why it's on the wish list. And number 2, typically when these new raids come in, they try to pick 1 or 2 neglected factions that not a lot of people are using. With the crate raid, we specifically saw this with Jawas, and even with the last Endor raid, we've seen this quite a bit with Ewoks as well. And there are still a handful of Jedi Council members that are just completely neglected, really by CG's part, by not either reworking them or kind of forcing them in with a new character. I realize Kelleron Beck is amazing. The matter of the fact is you don't really need to use Eth Koth and Kit Fisto with him. In TW, you're going to be making 4 Jedi teams at most, and there's more than 20 good Jedi before you get to Kit Fisto and Eth Koth and all the rest of the characters that kind of fit into that general area. Not to mention the Xyl Beast, spoiler alert for Bad Batch Season 2 for anyone that's seen it, also appears there, so they would be able to include not just the normal Jedi faction, but they would be able to include the Bad Batch as well. They could also add an addition to it, maybe some Separatist teams, because of how the whole thing went down during the Clone Wars arc. And overall, I think, again, would just be a really fitting raid to add to the game, an even bigger, even stronger creature out there that they could have. Next up is going to be Fleet. So again, we've talked about a lot of characters. We've talked about a possible, or not a possible Galactic Legend, a wish list Galactic Legend, a new raid. One of the really amazing things that happened in Fleet over the last couple of years is it feels like they finally were able to flesh out the iconic Empire ships. For the longest time, we were missing really cool ships like TIE Interceptor, TIE Defender, as well as TIE Bomber. And now they've really gotten to a good point with, at least with Empire, where it feels like we have a lot of the Empire from the shows, from the movies. The big contrast to that is it doesn't feel that way with the Rebel fleet. Obviously, you know, we have Han's Millennium Falcon, a few X-Wings, which is pretty cool, but we're still missing some of the bigger members out there, like the B-Wings and A-Wings, and maybe even another X-Wing, hint, hint, wink, wink, at you, Red 5. And being able to fill those out would not only be, you know, cool to have those ships actually in game, but we still have 2 Rebel fleet commanders that are both pretty good, and we're not really able to make 2 good fleets out of them. You can really commit all the way to Profundity and get kind of a more or less thing with Home 1, or you can gut Profundity and get a better Home 1. Either way, you don't really have a win-win situation with the current split. And just adding, again, 2 or 3 of those iconic ships in that we're currently missing, that we don't have, after 8 years, or I guess 7 years, because ships didn't come out in the very beginning, would be really nice to be able to add on to things. So Rebel fleet is definitely something that I would like to continue to see. Next up, and this is again super wish listy, I want more Phantom Menace. I really don't care what we get from the Phantom Menace. If we could get anything at all, I just still think that the game holds very few, and I'm trying to figure out the best way to word this, not unique or exclusive, but characters that really represent the time of Phantom Menace. Granted, we have a ton of characters from the prequel era, but most of them are concentrated either the Clone Wars or Episode 2 or Episode 3. How many of them you can actually look at and you think, oh yeah, that's a character from the Phantom Menace? I can't find that many. Obviously, the 5 on screen fit that bill perfectly, and then there's still 1 or 2 others hidden in here that also do that. But there's many characters, specifically the entire Gungan faction would be really great to have. There's several characters within that, like Boss Nass, Jar Jar Binks, obviously. There's Padawan Obi-Wan Kenobi, who we have Qui-Gon, but we don't have him. Another version of Padme, I guess, wouldn't be terrible, as in Queen Amidala, Captain Panaka. There's several characters that are main parts, crucial to that story in that movie, that we just never got. If you want to compare it to one of the sequel movies and all the characters that we got from the main story there and up until like Zori and whatnot, we just don't really have that for the Phantom Menace, and it's been lacking for years and years and years. So that would probably be my big one. Speaking of characters who are a big deal in movie that we still don't have, and I've already made actually videos about this before, but Tobias Beckett, like right now between him and Jar Jar, they are the 2 characters who have the most amount of lines from movies that we still don't have in game. Obviously, there are characters that have more lines in them, but we have those characters in game. These 2 are the really big outliers right now, that if we got them, it would kind of solidify the list a little bit better. And then on top of that, we still have Kira, young Lando, and young Han. And they are, you can slot them into a number of scoundrel teams and still see pretty good odds. At the very high end, you can even use young Han Solo in a Dash Vandor team against certain JML comps. But for the most part, I really can't find a reason with my 11 million roster or whatever to bring these guys up at this point. There's just not a whole lot they're doing. I already have some Scoundrel squads that are already using overall more beneficial characters. And bringing in, and actually, I kind of want to reword this, bringing in a specifically Smuggler Leader. Because right now we have Dash, who came in and does have prepared synergy, yes, but he all is still revolving around scoundrels. It would be kind of interesting if we finally got a pure Smuggler Leader that would be able to take, all of these smugglers and turn them into something else as well. And again, just an overall very cool character that we still have yet to have in game, despite him existing in Star Wars canon for quite a while now. So that's my wish list. Again, take it for what you will. If you like it, cool. But let me know what you guys think in the comments about what characters you think would be really cool to have in game. Until next time, stay awesome.